Hello everybody. My name is Natalie Ditmore. As Doug said, I am the lower school director at Triangle Day School, which essentially means that I am kind of in charge of operations in our lower school in TK through fifth grade. So you will see me running drop off and carpool for better or for worse. You'll see me leading lower school meetings. You'll see me teaching writing in lower school classrooms, pulling a math group, observing teachers and giving feedback, a little bit of everything, just to make sure that our operations are running smoothly in our lower school. So I thought I would just walk you through some lower school logistics, share some things that pop up as common FAQs and things that I think prospective parents are really interested in hearing about. And then we'll just kind of open it up for questions if that sounds good to everybody. So I always like to start by saying that our ultimate priority in lower school is to meet the academic needs of all of our students while making school a joyful experience and just making school a happy and thriving environment for your children. So you heard Kim Suling just now talk about our community, and I love the way she worded it. I think as you are looking at different schools, whether they be public schools, charter schools, independent schools, you will hear the word community come up a lot. And I think that everyone is absolutely genuine when they talk about the vital nature of community in their school. But I will say, I do think that there is something unexplainable about the community at TDS. It's just something that you feel when you walk on campus. It's the relationship that our teachers have with each other. It's the relationship that our teachers have with our parents. It's the relationship that our parents have with each other. And then most importantly, the relationships that our students have both with each other and with the adults who are part of their time at TDS. So I think it's not just something that exists at our school. It is our school. It's the foundation of everything that we do. So with that emphasis on relationship, I think we just so strongly believe that the best learning happens when students feel known and cared for. And so relationship between student and teacher is vitally important. And we also, I think Doug's example that he very often uses is that our business manager, who never really sees the kids and is in charge of things like bookkeeping and facilities and fire drills, knows every single one of our students by name, and will kind of jump in and greet them as they're arriving at school every morning. And so really every adult on campus is really invested in the student's experience. We do our best to follow a responsive classroom model. And basically all that means is that we are a highly student-centered school. So we take a very student-centered approach to everything that we do. And that means that's in our kind of academic classroom time and also in our social emotional learning time. And the basis for a responsive classroom model is that it fosters an intrinsic desire in the students to do well. I think that's something that Doug touched on a little bit. There's a culture in our school where learning and doing well is something that is celebrated and acknowledged in our students, and something that without applying a burdensome amount of pressure on our students is just a very positive culture in our school. And we want them to be intrinsically motivated to do well outside of just wanting to do so for a reward. So our classrooms typically do not have reward systems. We don't have clip charts. We don't have red, yellow, and green cards. And students will be put on individual behavior plans and things as needed. But for the most part, the culture in our classrooms is that people do what they're supposed to in their classroom and do their best work because that's just what we do at school. And that I often am kind of asked, like, does that work? And the answer is absolutely yes. The kids are part of our community. They choose what their classroom rules are at the start of every year, and everyone kind of lives by that. And it really does. It's honestly more effective than taking kind of an extrinsic approach. We also believe that parents are crucial parts of our community, and they're also crucial parts in their children's education. So when we talk about community, you are also very much a part of that. So just a few examples. I just got an email yesterday from a parent who is kind of hell-bent on making the fall carnival happen in a safe and positive way, and is willing to kind of do anything and everything he can to make it happen. So we have a slew of parent volunteers kind of working to keep these traditions alive. They run fall carnival, they run field day. We have back to school picnics. As Kim mentioned, we have a Hispanic Heritage Month celebration where all of our families will be on campus, and our parents are all very much involved in making those things happen. Something new that we started this year that I'm hoping to continue as a TDS tradition is something that we're calling First Fridays. So the first Friday of every month, we will have a coffee session. Right now it's happening without coffee because we are keeping our masks on, but hoping one day soon it can be over coffee and donuts. And we'll have some kind of shared mingling time for parents to get to know one another. And then usually some sort of scheduled programming. So our next one that we have coming up will be a book swap where families with children of all ages will bring a few books that they don't need anymore, and kind of lay them out on tables by age group. And then they can kind of age down or age up, and let kind of parents shop around for new books. And then anything that's not claimed will be donated. We are hoping to have our counselor give a talk on student anxiety and our learning specialist talk about executive functioning skills and how to get out the door on time, and just kind of provide our families with times to get to know each other, but then also kind of have learning experiences and shared experiences as a family community. So that's something that we are really excited to start doing this year. And so while we place all of this emphasis on character building and relationship and community, because it's the foundation of everything that we do, we have high academic standards for our students, and we really push to get the best out of our teachers and thus get the best out of our students. So we hold our students accountable for doing well and for reaching their academic goals and for reaching their academic potential. And how do we do this? So our curriculum is regularly audited and researched to make sure that we are serving our students well with the best resources that are out there. And that's not to say that we are a school that jumps to trends too quickly before there's adequate research to kind of back those up, but we are constantly running kind of teacher-led committees and things that conversations that I'm a part of both formally and informally to make sure that our chosen curricula are really what serve the students well. We also, being an independent school, are not a teach by the book, teach to the test school. So what a teacher does one year or for one group of students might not be exactly what they do the next year, depending on what that group needs and what they need academically. So our staff are constantly seeking professional development activities and ways to grow, and just making sure that their students have everything that they need. I think something that's important to talk about when talking about reaching the needs of all students is that oftentimes people think of that as meeting the needs of students who maybe aren't quite where they need to be in a grade level. And while that's absolutely something that we address, it's also really important to address the students who are performing above grade level in other areas and make sure that they have access to content that is enriching and challenging, and keeping them engaged in what's happening in school. And so those two things are equally important in our classrooms. To help us do that, we have what we call our student success team, which is made up of our school counselor, our learning specialist, our literacy specialist, and our math specialist. And so the four of them meet weekly, and as a team, just to kind of make sure that they're collaborating on who is meeting with who. But they all have very set schedules where they're either pushing into classrooms or pulling small groups and basically supporting our teachers in making sure that all of our students' needs are being met academically. So when a student enters our community, they really are kind of surrounded by a village and a team of people who are around them. And that includes their former teachers, that includes their compliments teachers, their specialists, it includes myself, it includes Deb, who I know she says that for the next few months you can reach out to her with questions, but she is very involved in our family's experiences moving forward. We have first year families who will still kind of reach out to Deb for questions because that's who they've gotten to know. And she is, as I said, as all members of our staff are, just very kind of ingrained into our school day. So I mentioned our compliments teachers. We have a compliments program at school where our students see PE, art, science lab, music, Spanish, library, and technology teachers either once or twice a week, depending on the subject. And that's just a way for them to kind of get some extracurriculars. And those teachers also do a great job of collaborating with each other and collaborating with classroom teachers. So for example, our science lab teacher and our technology teacher combined to do a huge STEM unit for our TK class this year to kind of combine those two subjects because they're obviously very closely aligned. All right, that was all of my academic exhalation. And now, just one last thing, I just thought it would be fun to share some of our favorite traditions at TDS and lower school. We like to do a buddies program where kindergarten is paired with third grade, first grade is paired with fourth grade, et cetera, to do crafts, reading projects, service projects, things like that. Those are happening this year. They weren't last year. And we're just kind of making sure that they're outdoors and distance, but it's just a really great way for the students to get to know kids in other grade levels. We have Crossroads, which Doug mentioned, where all of our students are split up into Harry Potter style houses of mixed ages. So TK through eighth graders are paired together in a house for one Friday a month to kind of have a fun kickball game or a game of charades or a service project. And those houses stay the same. And so the goal there is that over their time at TDS, those students will get to know the kids in their house really well and form meaningful relationships with students who are not just in their immediate grade level. Our fourth graders do an annual beach trip every year. It's hard. It feels mean to share traditions that might not happen this year, but I'm really hopeful that they'll happen soon. So they go to the beach for a night with parent volunteers, of course, and our teachers just to celebrate the end of the year in fourth grade. We have what we call the Great Fifth Grade Adventure. This is one of my very favorite traditions. So our fifth graders will research a tourist destination or a town of somewhere that's drivable from Durham, and kind of craft a trip. They'll call a visitors bureau or kind of explore what is possible to do and explore in that area, and are given a budget and have to plan a trip basically. So plan a class trip for this many people, and they present them to their classmates, and then their classmates vote and they actually go on that trip together at the end of the year. So hoping that that is returning to us someday soon as well. We have Spirit Week coming up in October, where there are different dress up days, or if you're Mrs. De La Torre, our TK teacher, every day is Spirit Day. So we have lots of costumes going on. And we also really do take advantage of getting outdoors and getting on field trips as much as possible. Again, not something that's happening at this moment, but something that we're looking forward to bringing back someday soon. We are next door to Bennett Place, so we have had some classes walk over to Bennett Place as a field trip holdover until we're able to do some more things. So of our favorite traditions. And then the last one is our annual Grandparents' Day. And that also just feels like an event that really speaks to our community. Around Thanksgiving, we'll do a Grandparents and Special Friends Day, where students can bring grandparents or someone close to them, whether it be a family member, a neighbor, someone who's been important in their life, to just come see what goes on at school. And my first year at TDS, I was blown away by the turnout at Grandparents and Special Friends Day. It is an event. We are parking all across the field in order to kind of accommodate everybody that we have. And it's just something that's really special, and I think unique to TDS, and just kind of speaks to how excited our students are to share our school and their school experience with the community around them. So I know that was a lot of information I threw at you, but I'm sure you have other questions or things that I potentially did not cover. So again, feel free to unmute yourself or pop those questions into the chat if you have anything you're curious about hearing about.
Hey there, this is Laura Caputo. Thank you so much for all that. That was really informative. I have a couple of questions. One of them is, I've sort of started the application process already. I'm wondering, what is the % of applicants that are accepted, and how you guys kind of make that decision? And then also, if there are multiple children in a family, how does it work if the first kid is accepted for the next kiddos?
So I'll take that, obviously. You guys, I'm sorry I'm in a shadow here. I'm in my husband's office, which I typically don't use. So I'm trying to kind of figure it all out. But anyway, I do have a face. It's not a shadow. So it's been really interesting the last several years, to be honest with you. So when I started here, I've been in admissions since 1995. Yes, I'm showing my age. But I've been at Triangle Day School. This is my 5th year. And when I started, kind of the challenge was to double the size of this, to almost double the size of the school. And that came from the board. It was a board directed decision. They were used to be 1 section, they went to 2 sections. And it has been a true pleasure kind of being able to do that, because this is a unique area. As many of you know, you've got kids, families coming from all over the country at kind of unusual times of the year. And we've been able to accommodate these amazing families. Well, I think that's coming to a stop, to be completely honest with you. That we are full, basically full. We've got a space here and there across the grade levels, TK through 8th grade. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how we move forward, Laura, to be honest with you. TK will be back to normal. We take 2 sections. We have 2 sections of transitional kindergarten, 16 in each one, two full-time teachers in each of the classrooms. So 4 full-time teachers, excuse me. So that'll be kind of same as normal as far as filling those classes. We do have, as Kim mentioned, some children that do repeat TK. So there might be 2 or 3 or 4 spaces that may be taken up, but basically I'll be filling the class of, 28 to 30 to 30, whatever. The other grades is going to be wait and see. But as far as answering priority, I mean, this is new waters kind of for Triangle Day School. We want to keep our families together. I mean, we wouldn't be a community. We wouldn't talk about community as often as we do if we didn't feel that way. So right now, my gut instinct is that is going to be a priority moving forward and always will be, assuming that those children are a good fit and the families are good fits. We are going to do our best to meet their, to get all children in at the same time. This past year, we were very fortunate. We had a couple of families with 2 and 3 kids, and it worked. And this was a competitive year. I will promise you this, though. I am nothing but brutally honest, and I will keep you informed. I will make sure you understand the processes we're going through it. Every grade is a little bit different. There are some grades that I'm incredibly worried about for next year, and some that I'm really thinking, okay, we're going to be able to take, 3 or 4 or 5 kids in those grades, and we'll just have to wait and see. I imagine, I don't know, Laura, I can't remember. I know I've spoken to you. I can't remember what grades you're looking at, but, depending on what you're looking at, you're going to have different advantages and disadvantages. But as we meet, and, those of you that take it to the next step, we will meet often and talk often. And I will promise that I will keep that clear so your expectations are out there. Many people do tend to apply to other schools within the TISC consortium. In Durham, that's the Duke School, that's Durham Academy, that's the Trinity School. And we are, it's embarrassing to admit that they're some of my closest friends as admissions directors. We are close, and yes, we're competitive, but it's a healthy competition. But we work together as a consortium to work with you, because we want families across the board to be comfortable with the decisions they make. So there's a lot. That's a great question and a hard one to start with, but I appreciate it. But all I can do is kind of end with what I started with, but I promise that I'll be really honest with you.
Sure, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Hi.
Hey, yeah, I just, to kind of piggyback off that, it's helpful that she opened with that. I hate to ask this in a group setting, but, because it doesn't apply to everyone, but, so how do you handle twins? We have twins looking at TK. We wonder about, both being ready or both being good fits. They're pretty similar in a lot of ways, so I'm not as worried about that, but there's different philosophies as far as like splitting them up, keeping them in the same room. Is it harder to kind of get them in because there's 2 of them? I mean, they would be TK, so that helps, I think, a little bit. They don't both need an open spot, but I was just curious, and I'm sorry, it doesn't probably apply to too many people.
I actually think it's a great question. I'm going to let Natalie answer some of that. I'm going to let her talk about the placement. But what I would say is it's not necessarily a disadvantage at all. I mean, our goal is to keep families together. And if you've got 2 coming in and they're both great fit for what we're looking for, we're not going to take one and not the other. We're going to say, this is, so please don't worry about that. As far as placing them, I mean, I know what I think, but since I do work with Natalie, and we do work with the TK teacher, but I'm going to let her field this answer.
Yeah, I was just going to say, our default is to put them in separate classes. I think in general, kind of helping them kind of be their own individual self is something that's important to us. We also, our class, we have 2 classes of each grade level, and they collaborate very closely. They eat lunch together, they're at recess together, they do activities together. So putting them in separate classes does not mean that they're separated from one another. That said, that is our strong recommendation, but we do have conversations with the families on kind of what to do otherwise. So we had kindergartners last year who were twins, and they had never been separated, and they've just gone through this kind of traumatic 6 years of COVID, and their parents were worried about what that would mean for them. So we put them together in kindergarten, and now they're separated in first grade and they're thriving. We have 2 fourth grade twins who started this year, and they, I think their parents just had concerns starting at a new school and felt really strongly about them being together. So that's what we ended up going with. So not to say that it's the parents' decision, but I think it's also kind of a funny, twins run in my family. So we always joke, like, it's how do you handle twins is also, it's kind of how we handle each individual student. And that's kind of based on the students and based on their needs. And obviously their families are helpful in giving us some insight into what's best for them.
And again, that may change year to year too.
Yep,
You know,
exactly.
they spend, the teachers, you know, the TK teachers are going to spend a lot of time discussing with the kindergarten teachers as to what is great for this group of twins, you know, and then that'll continue as they move through the grades.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Hi, my name's Catherine, and my son Bennett, we're looking at kindergarten for him. And I just had some questions about the average class size for your kindergarten classes and how you help ease that transition to kindergarten. This will be, he'll be going from a 3-hour preschool program to a full kindergarten day. And so just kind of wondering what supports you put in place for students as they're going into this very new environment and school day. And then the third question I had, sorry, is just like a typical day for kindergarten students or students in your lower school, just like a snapshot. What does that look like? What do they do?
Sure. So first of all, the goal is to have each class capped at 16. We've had some very rare circumstances where we, for example, one of our kindergarten classes is at 17 this year, but again, that's pretty uncommon. Our classes are almost hard capped at 16, and we have 2 full-time teachers in each kindergarten classroom. So it's a maximum of a 1-to-8 student teacher ratio. So just shedding some insight on that. And then your second question was meeting the needs during the transition. I think our kindergarten teachers just do a great job. Again, as a school, they've been part of our community for a long time, and they know what our community priorities are. I think they are so wonderfully aware of what a kindergartner is capable of, in a way that I taught 3rd grade for 6 years. So I watch a kindergarten teacher and I'm just in awe of just their knowledge of their students and their age group. And our kindergarten teachers do an amazing job. I would say, I'm sure Deb would agree. They are like so good at getting their kids to rise to a challenge in a way that I can't quite comprehend. Like, you'll have a student who struggles to get out of the car for the first 2 days of school, and we're looking at each other like, oof, I don't know if they're going to make it. And then the 3rd day, they're like backpack on running through the door. And it's an amazing thing to watch. And I think the credit goes to our kindergarten teachers, but I also think the credit goes to the kids. Something that we keep talking about as a faculty, especially in the times of COVID, is that we keep not panicking. We're all worried about our kids. We're worried about our own children. We're worried about our student population and the effects that this is going to have on them. And the kids keep showing up and they're fine. Like, we're worried about them and they're thriving. And so they're just constantly, kind of proving us wrong in our concerns. So, and they have lots of strategies for students who we do kind of check charts and little things like that if students are kind of in need of a little bit more structure as they kind of get settled into their school day and their school experience. So I think the last thing I would add to that is just a constant communication with families. You get a weekly newsletter, you know what's happening in the classroom. But also, like, if your child is struggling the first week of school, you will hear from our teachers and they will partner with you on how to make that a better transition for them. The collaboration is something that is pretty fluid. And then
No, sorry, go ahead. No,
No,
go
go
Natalie.
ahead. I was just going to go through the third question.
Yes, that's go.
Okay.
You go. Go.
Just a little snapshot of the day. Our kindergarten teachers have kind of crafted their schedule so that the heftier academic part of the day is over by lunchtime, just being very aware of the brain of a 5-year-old and when it starts to turn to mush. So they start every day with a morning meeting on the rug. This is something that all of our lower school classes do. So they sit down together, they greet everybody by name. So all the students, they'll do a little popcorn name game, or there's all sorts of different ways that they can say good morning by name, and then they go over the day schedule so that the students know what to expect. And then they start their kind of reading, math, writing rotations. They'll have a complement session, usually from about 11 to 12 after they've had a snack time and a playtime, of course, in the kind of mid-morning. And then they have an hour-long lunch and recess period. So 30 minutes for lunch, 30 minutes for recess. And then after that recess, they come in for a rest time for about 30 minutes. So there are mats on the floor, lights are off. And at the start of the year, it's really it's very quiet and peaceful. And then as the students get older, they're allowed to eventually kind of bring in a fidget toy or read a book. And they don't have to kind of be sedentary on their mat, but just kind of have a quiet reset time. And then they wake up from that and have their centers time and their social emotional kind of learning and bonding times. So again, the second half of the day it's vitally important. I think it's a lot of when they do their kind of relationship building and their community building and the kind of explicit social emotional teaching, but the academics start to kind of fizzle out by lunchtime, as a kindergartner's brain does.
The only thing I think I would add too is, because I think it's really important, I get this question a lot, is there is a lot of time for play. So we're a little bit more of a structured school in some ways. And when I say structured, I mean like there's a schedule. There is circle time from 8:30 to 8:50 or whatever it is. But there's a lot of time for play and in between, or as Natalie just said, at the end of the day. And I think that's important. And that, you'll hear Emily McAllister, the middle school teacher, talk about playing in the middle school. I mean, we really believe we are an academic school. We're rigorous. We're not cutthroat, as you've heard several times throughout the presentation tonight. But within that, if you want kids to be successful, you've got to let them play. And that is a huge, I don't want to say push. It's just vitally important to us as parents, as educators, as a school community, that our kids get out and run around. So I just wanted to say that, because I will be shocked if we don't get that question tonight.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. I would add too, kind of within lessons. And then Michael, I saw you raise your hand. I try to talk to our teachers about experiential learning as much as possible. So instead of kind of reading about volcanoes, they're doing a volcano activity. Instead of kind of learning about what it meant to muster during the Revolutionary War, they're in the hallway and their teacher's blowing a whistle and they're mustering in a line in 30 seconds. So to just kind of give them the experiences of the things that they're learning.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Michael?
Oh, I just wanted to ask about your after-school programs. We're a working family, so we need someone to help us out until 5 o'clock. So I was wondering if you could tell us more about after the academics end and what happens then.
Absolutely. We run an after-school program from until 6, Deb, is that correct? Yep. So students can go kind of straight from their classroom if they're signed up to attend after school on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and they're dismissed to go straight to after school. And we have our current athletic director and PE teachers in charge of after school programs. So she is someone who knows our kids really well. And then we bring in after school counselors. So they might be graduate students, they might be students who are studying education. So we have kind of a separate staff that comes in to run that after school program from dismissal until 6 p.m.
The only thing I'll add to that too is that we have a morning drop-off program that's kind of unusual. And I bring this up because I am a member of the consortium of schools, and a lot of schools will charge for a early drop-off. We do not. It's a little bit of a perk, but we also believe that there are a lot of you out there. And I will say, Michael, a lot of our families are both working parents. And I think in this day, that's probably the norm. But They need to be at work at 8 o'clock, and our school doesn't really start till 8:30. Drop off is any time between 8 and 8:15, but you can drop your child off as early as 7:45 for no extra fee. They go into the gym. There's a walking club, but music's playing. The kids are it's just an extra little perk that we think is really important. We did not offer it really last year, but we are offering it this year. And as Natalie said too, you have the flexibility in the afternoon you get if you contract it, meaning that if you sign up ahead of time and say I need 2 days or 3 days or 5 days or whatever it is, and you contract and sign that, you get a little bit of a discount. It's pretty substantial. It's about 20%. So I always encourage families when they're new to the school, as soon as you know that, you want to contact Maria and say, I am going to be I know I'm going to need it 2 or 3 days a week, and you sign up for it, and it's a substantial discount.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hi, Brian.
Hi, this is Brian. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're kind of going in and out there for a sec. Try again. Oh, there you go.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. So I was wondering if you could talk about just differences between how your school is different from like a public education. There's just a lot of options, public, various private schools, and what sets you guys apart from like a typical elementary school.
Natalie?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I think being an independent school teacher and now administrator, I always like to say that I'm just ironically a huge public school advocate. I think public schools are an amazing resource to our community, so have absolutely nothing against public schools. I was raised in public schools, and I do encourage them as a great option for a lot of families. I think something that sets us apart, there's so many things. I think our ability to really emphasize community and our ability to kind of be able to rally and do what's best for our community. I think in a time of need, for example, so last year we were able to be completely open all year because we had kind of the size and the team who was able to make that happen for everybody. I think our student to teacher ratio is something that is not at all kind of going to fluctuate year to year. We're pretty, other than kind of some in years past, we've had classes with 12 students. As Deb said, that's not so much the case anymore. So we're pretty close to that 16 students in each class, but that is something that we feel very strongly about not increasing. We think that is kind of a sweet spot of size, and we're very careful not to overload our teachers. I think our flexibility in curriculum is a huge one. So our teachers, after a few years of teaching a phonics program, come back and say, like, this isn't really working. The students aren't responding to it. And great, there's something else in place. There are resources for teachers in place in the weeks following, but the next year we are doing something different just because that's what's best for our students. So there's just a huge curricular flexibility that that doesn't necessarily exist across all public schools. I think our teacher quality is exceptional, and that also exists in public schools. I think something that we can do as an independent school is know our teachers extremely well and know their strengths and know their weaknesses. I think we all have things as professionals that we know we need to improve upon, and our teachers are very much of that mindset and are constantly looking to grow. So we are sending teachers to New York for a week to learn from experts at Teachers College about teaching a reading and writing workshop. And we are sending teachers to Seattle in the summer to go to a responsive classroom conference where they can kind of meet with other professionals and then bring presentations back to the rest of our staff. So I think that's just a huge advantage that we have, is really kind of working very closely with individual teachers to get them excited about what they're doing in the classroom and make sure that they have the complete and utter support that they need. And then lastly, I would say it really is, I know we sound like a broken record. It's the community events. It's families kind of waving through each other out the window during drop off. And it's our back to school picnic turnout that was just massive. And it's me having my 9-month-old on my hip at this back to school picnic who doesn't really know all these people, and everyone's greeting him by name because they know he was born last year. And it's just everybody everybody supporting each other and knowing each other, and just being genuinely happy to be around each other, that I think is just something that's really, really special. Deb, I don't know if you want to add
Yeah, I
anything.
just was going to add one thing, of course, because I've got the admissions like testing hat on my head. We don't teach to the test. I mean, that's a huge, big difference. So, we do assessments every year, starting in second grade. We use the ERB, which is an incredibly well-respected, it tends to be more independent school focused, or more independent schools use them. As I said earlier, I've been here doing this for a long time. And with the exception of the ERB, we don't do, it's very individualized. We are meeting kids where they are. And I too, like Natalie, am a huge proponent for public schools if they're good. And if they meet your child's need, then by all means, that's what you should be looking at. I just think, unfortunately, they don't have the ability, they don't have the manpower to be able to have a class of 25 and do what needs to be done for all of those different children. And then it's moving to the Triangle area. You guys are all very lucky to be in an area where there are so many options, so many great schools. But again, going back to what I initially started saying, our ability to just kind of meet where kids are. We don't teach the tests. We have our benchmarks, believe me, and our benchmarks are probably stricter in some ways than people have any idea. As Natalie said, we hold our selves accountable to what it is that we're doing and what it is we're promising you that we're doing. So a little bit, I hope that's answering your question, Brian. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure.
That was great.
Any other questions? I really value, even though my kids are all gone and grown, I value family time, and we really want to thank you for spending some time with us. I hope that this is just your first kind of touch point, and that you will come talk to us at any time. Give me a call, schedule a tour. I am also very happy to connect you to Natalie, to the teachers, to people with more that can really answer the question better than I can, and happy to do that at any time. But if there aren't any more questions, please go enjoy your family, read to your children, and have a wonderful evening. Guess that's, Catherine, hi.
No, I was just going to sign off and say thank you very much for,
Of course.
for this meeting. It was very helpful. So thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, Holly.
My daughter is in fourth grade at another private school in town. And one of the things I've been looking at is it seems that a lot of the other private schools in town start middle school in fifth grade, which is why I sort of started this process now. And I didn't know if there's a reason that you have kept it in fifth grade in the lower school, or if there's a thought behind that.
I'm happy to take this, Deb, if you want to kind of add to it.
Go ahead.
So
I'll back it up if I think of anything else.
Yeah. So this is just my fourth year at TDS. I know our fifth grade has always been part of our lower school. And that said, it's not really there just because that's the way it's always been. I think as the lower school director, I kind of firmly believe that fifth grade is a really important transition year. And I think that our fifth grade teachers do a wonderful job of kind of letting that fifth grade year serve as a preparation for middle school. So they hop between classes. So one of our fifth grade teachers teaches the language arts and kind of the reading writing. So they'll go to her for an hour and a half, and then they hop back over to the other class for math and science. So they kind of get the students, used to that format. They get the planners that the middle schools use and kind of really practice being personally responsible for kind of writing down their homework and making sure that they turn in all of their assignments. But working with fifth graders and knowing them very well, I think they're just not quite ready for our middle school program. And I also think part of that is that our middle school program requires a fair amount of their students. They have high expectations for what they're responsible for. And I think our fifth graders just aren't quite ready for that. So I can't speak to middle school programs at other schools, but I think it's probably a combination of those two. I think our middle school program it's rigorous. It's not cutthroat, as Deb said. I liked that phrase, but it really does expect a lot from their students, and we really want to make sure that they're set up for success. And so that's kind of giving those fifth graders the chance to have that buffer year. And I think it's also a chance for them to have a leadership year at the school in a way that is age appropriate. So they're out with me every morning, opening the doors for drop off. They're helping run assemblies and kind of giving them those opportunities to start stepping up in our community.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add too is that because we only go through 8th grade, our middle school set up a little differently. And I won't go into Holly, you and I need to have a conversation about this later. I'm afraid we're going to get cut off here in a minute, but real quickly, it's because it's set up differently to have our 5th graders kind of be the leaders of the lower school makes the most sense. That transitional year, as Natalie said, is really important. But also because our middle school 6th, 7th, and 8th, and we end in 8th grade, we're a high school prep school, for lack of a better way to explain it. And there's a lot of focus on kind of getting these kids ready. I mean, they can write papers and they know how to study for a test. And to put a 5th grader in there is not quite ready. That being said, they do spend time with the middle school. They visit over there. They can play the sports with the middle school team. So yeah, so if they still have all those options. It's just that we keep them they are in the back building with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, which we think is a better timing. And we are going to get kicked out of here. Holly, please call me and we'll discuss this more.
I'd love to. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.